Hello, this is Teresa. I'm here to share with you some coloring techniques inking on the new Arctic Starstruck foiled paper from Rinea. This has the same pattern on it as all the previously released Starstruck papers, and I'm going to be showing you some different options for coloring on this paper, including archival ink, and I'll show you some examples with some markers. Now, I've already experimented with archival inks by swiping a couple of colors across the paper, as well as taking a stamp and stamping in the different colors. And what's really awesome about this particular type of ink is it will dry and not rub off after you've stamped it, and it doesn't take very long for this ink to dry at all. So it's a great option if you happen to have this for coloring on this particular paper. But as I said, I've also experimented by trying some different kinds of markers on here, and I'll show you what worked and what didn't work so well. So I decided to go with the same color family, and I have a Copic marker, Sharpie, a distress marker, another style of alcohol marker, and a water-based marker right here at the end. So the Sharpie is, of course, a permanent type of marker, and all of these different things will color on the paper just fine, but it's a matter of which ones dry and don't rub off very easily. And so the second thing I'm using is a Copic marker. Then I'm going to move on to a distress marker, and this is a little bit of a different formulation than I think a typical marker. I believe it has both pigment and ink, or pigment and dye properties to it, maybe water-based properties to it, not entirely sure. But this is a different alcohol marker. This is a Spectrum Noir marker. And then finally, I'm using a typical water-based style marker. This is from Marvi Yukata. There are a lot of different options on the market. And in the time that I've colored these different colors, I just give it a minute at max to make sure that it's had a chance to dry. And I'm going to do basically a test on each color by rubbing across the colors with my fingers to see if the ink comes off. So at the very top, you can kind of see what the colors look like, ranging from the Sharpie marker down to the water-based marker. And the Sharpie passes the test. It dries, does not rub off of the paper, so that is a potential option for you. And Sharpies come in a lot of colors. Secondly is a Copic marker, and that definitely comes in a lot of colors. Now the distress marker, as you can see as I rub across it with my finger, it does come off on my fingers, so this probably isn't your best option for coloring. And the next is the Spectrum Noir, and since this is also an alcohol-based marker, it dries very quickly and it does not rub, the color does not rub off at all. And of course, the final thing that I tested was a water-based marker. And like the distress marker, when I rub on that particular one and was trying to pick a finger that I had not already gotten used before, and when I rub across that, it definitely transfers to my finger. So really what I'm sharing with you is the best options are Sharpie and an alcohol-based ink marker are the best choices for coloring on this paper and not transfer to anything that touches it. So that's kind of the marker test that I'm sharing with you today. And the project that I decided to do, I used archival inks to stamp and use a swiping method. So I'm swiping on each of these three colors. I'm not going to try to blend them together, but I did attempt to overlap them a bit. This is a very easy, forgiving technique, and it makes a great background for a bold sentiment, which is what I'm going to put on here. And using this type of technique, you could create any kind of colored background that you might want and then stamp on top of it. with an archival ink in a dark color. So, I mean, you could use your imagination on any type of design you may want to do and have a colored background. So you could use floral stamps or anything else that catches your fancy. In my case, I'm going to be using a large sentiment stamp, and I'm using archival ink in black to stamp that down. Unfortunately, my ink pad, or this particular color, is a little bit dry, so as you're going to see, it's going to be fairly faint, gray, almost gray looking whenever I pull the lid back, so I had to stamp multiple times to get a dark color. So rather than make you watch that, I'll just kind of skip ahead to the part where it's stamped and is looking dark black. And now that I have my sentiment stamped, I'm going to put that aside and work on the background. So I have another piece of the Arctic foiled paper. I've cut it to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches to make my background. I have selected some different stamps in different starburst type shapes, and then I'm going to again use the archival inks to stamp all over the background and create a background pattern. And one of the tips to making a background look better is to make sure that some of the stamps are off the edge, so it looks like the pattern is continuing beyond the edge of the paper. So I just continue filling in until I'm happy with the background, even though a lot of it's going to be covered up. So as you can see, I'm taking the piece that I worked on earlier and I'm just tearing it in a rough rectangular shape around the stamp sentiment, and then I will put that on some foam tape and glue that down to the background that I've already created. And once that's done, well, actually you see me putting it together all now. I put my card base down and then put the background down on it, and then the sentiment part. So now I'm using some Nuvo drops, and what you don't see on screen is I'm going to switch out and use a lot of different colors that complement the colors that are already on this card design. So when I show you the final product, you'll see a little bit of a close-up, and it's going to show you metallic and clear colors and just some opaque colors that I used by Nuvo, but whatever it was, I just made sure that it kind of fell into the same color family as what I used on this card. And I really appreciate you stopping by and spending time today with me watching this video. I hope that you'll give something like this a try and give it a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, thank you for watching. Here are some additional videos that you can watch, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.